Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean and you are watching MLS Ireland does predictions for week 18. Stay tuned. Thank you. Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean, and if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button. Even though that I know there's a few people now starting to watch this thing now and are not subscribing, so hit that subscribe button. If you are new to this is my prediction show and all that kind of stuff. I done one on during the week there. That was on Twitch. Thank you very much for people who viewed that as well and hit the thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. This, as you said, this is my predictions for the MLS, and this is going to be week 18, and I might as well crack on into it, even though last week's games I got done very well, so obviously first game of the season, first game of the week is Columbus Crew against Atlanta. Columbus Crew, who got beat there against New York City or DC United and in New York City last week, and they got beaten by 4 goals. Now they're coming up against the Atlanta team, who I believe drew during the week on the 4th. So yeah, yesterday they drew against Montreal, so that's not a great result for them. I know Montreal is 12th in the league, whereas Atlanta are 22nd, but they're coming up against now an okay Columbus Crew team who are 11th, but who have lost their last 10 games. Saying that, Columbus Crew have won it, well, in the last 4 games at home, they've only won the 1, whereas Atlanta haven't won a game away from home. So that was kind of into my predictions. So I do think Atlanta can get a good result out of this. I know Columbus Crew are there to be scored against, so I went for like a 2-2 draw, just for the fact is Atlanta have Joseph Martinez kind of back and kind of scoring, whereas Columbus Crew can score goals and concede a hell of a lot more. So I think Joseph Martinez may have a good time playing Columbus Crew. The next one is FC Cincinnati against Orlando. Now this is going to be a good one. I think Cincinnati have a capability to probably beat Orlando. It's probably just one of these games where they're not suspected to win, but you know, this is MLS where you don't think they're going to win, then they win and all that kind of stuff. And they're coming up against Orlando team who are started off the season quite well, and then they drew against Inter Miami there during the week yesterday, I believe, and then they beaten Atlanta, which was a good result for them, albeit. So they're coming up against a Cincinnati team who I think can get a goal against this Orlando team, but I think Orlando could possibly win this one 2-1, just for the fact is they have a better team and they have better players, and just all that roundness, the gelling, you know what I mean. The next one is Minnesota against Houston Dynamo. Now Minnesota, where are they? They're 14th in the league. They drew their last 2 games, and that was away from home against LAFC and Vancouver. And now this is going to be their first game back at home in a few weeks. And they're coming up against a very good team in Houston Dynamo, but who are 19th in the league and haven't won a game in the last 6. So it is going to be a tricky one enough for them, who Houston Dynamo hasn't even won away from home as well this season, whereas Minnesota have won 3 out of the last 4 at home. So this is kind of going into my thinking. I know Minnesota are a very good team at home, so I'll go for like a 2-1 win to Minnesota, just for the fact is they are at home, they have a very good fan base, and Houston Dynamo don't really get that, they're not really great away from home, so I'll stick with 2-1 to that one. The next one is Toronto at home against New York City FC. Toronto lost their last game there against Philadelphia 3-0, which wasn't a great game for them, whereas New York City, I believe, they drew against Chicago Fire, which was a bit of a shock, but again, they were in Chicago, so you can probably put that down to a travel. So New York City are going to be away from home again, but I think they're going to have the capability to win this one, so I went for like a 3-1, just for the fact is New York City probably are a better team than Toronto, and Toronto are just not all that great at the moment, as you can tell, because they're second from bottom. Perfect. And the next one is FC Dallas against Austin FC. Now, where I got Austin last night against Houston Dynamo to win this Texas Derby. I got that one correct, so you know, a little pat on the back for me in that one. So this one is going to be another Texas Derby, which is going to be a good game. Saying that, I think Dallas have the capability to probably win this game, because they probably are a better team than Houston, obviously, and they're a better team than Austin. I think Austin probably, because they're not at home in this one, I think I went for, what did I go for? 3-0 win to FC Dallas. Just for the fact is FC Dallas are better players. Just, you know, they spring a surprise in a lot of these kind of games. So this is the kind of game they could probably be up for, and they're probably going to win. The next one, sorry about that. The next one is Colorado Rapids against Sporting Kansas City. Colorado, who I still am surprised that they're doing quite so well. They haven't, well, in the last 6 games they only won 3. So, you know, they're kind of doing well, but they're kind of sitting there just perfectly. And they're coming up against a good Sporting Kansas City team who are 2nd in the league. They won their last 3, whereas Colorado have only won 2 in the last 4, which they haven't lost anyway, so that's not a bad result. So going with this, I think Kansas City probably are a better team away from home than Colorado could be at home. So I went for like a 2-1 win to Sporting Kansas City. So a 2-1 win is probably going to be, it is going to be a tricky one. I think this game could probably go either way. I think it could possibly be a draw, but I went for like a 2-1 win just for the fact that Kansas City are probably, as I said, a better, not as bad on the road as Colorado is at home. So basically 2-1 win. And then the next one is Portland Timbers against Real Salt Lake. Now Real Salt Lake started off the season quite well, and then they kind of dipped. Now they're 15th in the league, whereas Portland are all over the shop, and they're pretty hard to really nail down to see if they're really good. They are better at home than they are away from home, whereas Real Salt Lake are kind of even in their wins and draws and loses. So this was a tricky one. I went for a Portland and Real Salt Lake draw 2-2. I think Real Salt Lake have the capability of scoring goals, but I think at home Portland could possibly get this one, get a result at least for 2-2. So yep, 2-2 draw on that one. The next one is, I'm going through these quite quickly. The next one is Chicago Fire against New York Red Bulls. Now Chicago Fire haven't lost any in the last 2, which is pretty impressive. At home they're not all that great, whereas Red Bull are just not as good either as well. I went for a 1-1 draw just for the fact is they're pretty hard to, I think Chicago Fire getting that draw last night will kind of help them, because they drew against New York City and then they drew against Philadelphia, which was pretty good. 2 very good results, and now they're going to be at home again against the Red Bulls team who are good, but they're not as good as those 2, so I went for a 1-1 draw. The next one is Inter against Nashville. Now, could this possibly be another draw? I think it may be. Inter Miami, did they win? No, they drew last night. That was against Orlando. And then they beat Montreal, and then they drew against Philadelphia. So they're starting to get back into the swing of things, which is actually not too bad to see. I would like to see teams do well in this thing. They're coming up against the Nashville team who are doing very, very well. 6th in the league, and they've only lost the 1 game, which is pretty impressive. I know they draw a hell of a lot of games, but they're up in 6th in the league, and I kind of think they've figured out the proper good way of winning, doing well in the MLS is having a good defense, and then, you know, getting a good result from there. So coming into this, I think Nashville probably could get a draw on this one. Obviously, shock horror. So I went for like a 1-1. I do think Inter could possibly score a goal. I think Higuain's now starting to took that criticism probably rather well, and now is starting to kick on. So yep, 2-1. The next one is New England Revolution against Philadelphia. Last season I would have said this is going to be a Philadelphia nailed on win, whereas New England now are top of the league and Philadelphia are 7th. Philadelphia are starting to get strange this season again. They haven't really won that many games away from home, whereas New England are doing very well. They, in the last 4, granted, they've won 2, drew 1 and lost 1. So this game could go anyway, but I think New England could possibly have the win in this one. So I went for like a 2-1 win, just for the fact that New England are in the last 6 games 1-4 and only drew the 1 last week, and that was last night. So yep, I went for like a 2-1 win. The next one is San Jose Earthquakes against LAFC. Now LAFC got a hammering last night. That was against Sporting Kansas City, and now Sporting Kansas City playing them as well in LA. And now they're coming up against the San Jose Earthquakes team who Where did they do? They drew last night as well against Portland, and then they beat Seattle, which was quite a bit of a shock. But when you think about it, Seattle had most of their good players injured and off in the international duty. Well done for that. MLS picking up playing games during an international. Crikey. Anyway, San Jose could possibly get a good result in this one. I went for a 1-1 draw because just for the fact is I think LAFC are not in a great place at the moment and they could probably take advantage. Unfortunately, they're not good enough to take a proper advantage, so I just went for a 1-1 draw. The next one is DC United, who had a very impressive win last night, and they're coming up against a Montreal team who, how did they do? They drew against Atlanta, obviously, and then they lost their last 3 away games prior to that. So I think I may go for an interesting one. Yeah, I think DC United should probably win this one. I went for a 2-1 win, just for the fact is they are now finally playing well. They're 10th in the league. They're starting to get the ball rolling. Yep. In their last 3 at home, they've won, and they haven't really drew a game away from home. Whereas Montreal, aren't. They've lost their last 3 out of their last 4 away from home, so they're not in a great place at the moment. So I went for a DC United 2-1 win. And then the last game of the week is LA Galaxy against Vancouver, of course. LA Galaxy, who are 4th in the league now. It is an interesting game. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's maybe on TV here. LA Galaxy have also have won 3 of their last 4 at home, whereas Vancouver haven't won anything away from home at this moment in time. So saying that, I went for an LA Galaxy 2-0 win, just for the fact that LA Galaxy are a far better team. Vancouver can surprise you with probably getting a few goals in this one, but I went for a 2-0, and I think LA Galaxy now are starting to pick things back up again and put themselves where they're supposed to, really. So that's my predictions. And if you're new to this, again, as I said, hit that subscribe button, follow me on Twitch and all that kind of stuff, and Twitter and all that stuff. All of those links are down in the description below, even if you made it this far. I doubt that you have. So saying that, thank you very much, and I hope to see you next week. And so bye now.